Hey, folks, we're back with our final block, and it's about AMD versus NVIDIA. This has been a battle that's been long brewing, but AMD is now showing some chips or AI chips in actual servers that people can buy. And so the argument is AMD, John Schwartz, has wrapped itself in this open source flag and is saying that, NVIDIA is all about lock-in and they are all about openness. But the question is, can AMD really catch NVIDIA? Is NVIDIA just too far ahead? And who knows?
Yeah, you read my mind. It's almost to the point now where we're saying, remember AMD? Somewhere that company, that other company, right? So there's all this hoopla around NVIDIA's dominance. There was, where in the world is Jensen Huang? He has a special guest appearance at every conceivable AI event the last 2 years. And then if we're not talking about them, we're talking about the follies at Intel. So somewhere AMD got lost in the shuffle. And it's unfortunate, given this company's reputation, which is incredibly good, I think, in the Valley. It's a universally lauded CEO. And it's kind of avoided this whole political fallout with Trump and kind of maintained its dignity. But in a sense, Mike, yes, as you said, they were trying to offer this clear message to differentiate themselves from NVIDIA at their event in San Jose. And they want to present themselves as this leading player in their enterprise AI market and at least be in the conversation. I think that's what they're trying to do. And the way they're trying to do it, I think core to it is this competitive strategy of a focus on open standards and an interoperative approach versus NVIDIA, which is a mix of open source and proprietary approach. So if it's sent in some way, and Alan has always said this, he's always driven it home, in every major market, there are like 3 major players that are going to survive. AMD is going to be fine. They're going to be a distant second to NVIDIA for the foreseeable future. But I laud them and give them major credit for at least trying to differentiate themselves and kind of try to counterbalance this fusillade of just constant NVIDIA news. So the competition is good, and I think we need to have like another choice. NVIDIA kind of scares me in a certain sense too, because they're too powerful for their own good.
I think of AMD as the Jan Brady of chip makers. So the Marsha is NVIDIA.
But you know what? I love the Brady Bunch reference, but if I had to pick a company to play this role, AMD's damn good at it. They played this to Intel for 20 years. And you know what? As we sit here today, they did a damn good job. Right? Intel was, for all intents and purposes, a monopoly. But AMD stayed in the game. They couldn't go toe-to-toe with the Intels, but they stayed in the game. I suspect it'll be a similar thing here. Right? And then, look, Q-Day is coming. Q-Day is coming, and who has the quantum chip? And is that guy going to wear a synthetic leather jacket and go to every conference? And
Hey, well, I wouldn't count AMD out for the following reasons. One is they're actually doing quite well in traditional servers, and most of the, at least more than half of the new servers that people are rolling out have AMD processors in there. So they have the chops to fight the fight, and open source it's a classic, tortoise versus the hare kind of thing. Open source has historically been slow off the mark, but eventually wins the race. So I don't know, Alan, if I look at these open source libraries, developers like that, maybe eventually AMD will resonate with those folks.
What I find interesting, though, Mike, is if you listen to Jensen, CUDA and the rest of their software empire is open source, isn't it?
I don't think CUDA is open source, but the people who write it are all NVIDIA people, and NVIDIA has a strong...
I was going to say, I think it's an example of one of those things that's, like I kind of refer to as like a quasi open source. I mean, like technically it may be, but to like Mike's point, when it's completely driven by one organization, like all the contributors, the people that actually own, who can do check-ins and so forth, all work for one company. Like, I mean, I guess technically it is, but not truly community.
John, how soon we forget, because we're all used to what I call the foundational model of open source now, where you have the Linux Foundation, the Eclipse Foundation, Apache Foundation, and you have co-opetition among competitors, and we're all kumbaya gathering around the maypole. But before there was a foundational era, there was what I call the big brother era of open source, where every open source project was basically owned lock, stock, and barrel by one organization, and they ran it for their own benefit, right? Going back in the security world, you know, Nessus was Tenable, and Snort was SourceFire, and, you know, it was open source, but it was controlled by them. And that was the way open source ran until, you know, in this big brother era of open source. IBM was good at this too. So, you know, that's
well, I think
NVIDIA.
this space is a bit different too, because there's such, you know, when you think specifically about what we're talking about now with AMD and NVIDIA, it's not sort of general purpose software that could be run, you know, independently of the underlying hardware layer. It's software that is to enable the capabilities of hardware. And I think almost definitionally, it's going to be much closer.
You could have open source software, but if it only runs on my proprietary chip,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
what difference does it make, right? Open source my toe. But like, you know, I think we all would like to see AMD be competitive here. I think, you want to know the truth? I think NVIDIA would like to see AMD be competitive. Because if they're not, then you start using that M word. And the M word gets scary, right?
I'll also say, having just been at Microsoft for a long time during the early 2000s, yeah, honestly, I would tell you, and I think most thoughtful people there would have said, you are better off when you have some competitor who is credible. Like, you don't want to be winning, you know, 50% of the time, but, you know, you want to be credible. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps, like, you know, some energy. It makes the market feel like it's something dynamic, where it's not just like, yeah, it's just stuff. Like, it's, you know, I'm just going to buy it and use it until it dies. Like, you really do need that. So, I mean, I think you're right. Like, if they're smart and thoughtful, which I'm sure they are. Clearly, they've made an incredible business. So, you know, I think there's probably, like, they wouldn't want to admit it publicly, but they probably are, you know, happy that there's, like, at least some competition that's out there.
Agreed.
I feel like we're going to have this. I feel like we're going to have this conversation over again. In theory, there should be a framework, kind of like the RISC-V people are talking about, where I have an instruction set that can run on different processors, and that should apply to GPUs, theoretically at least. But the problem I've seen over the years is that developers, you know, for that extra 10 to 15% of performance they might get, are willing to sell their souls for lock-in.
Well, the other thing I'll say too is having, you know, we do use some AI capabilities in our product, and you know, I've certainly worked with a number of companies that are customers that you know, are very focused on either building AI services or really focused on AI enablement of their products. One of the things that I hear consistently from them is just that NVIDIA has really gone the extra mile to make the developer experience excellent. Like the ability to get started, the ease of use, the integration of the tools, that they've really done a very good job with that. So it's not just simply like, you know, they're here, they kind of had like a, you know, monopoly position to begin with. One of the reasons that they've had that is they've made it as easy as possible for people to build on their hardware by having a great, you know, effectively like SDK on top of that. And, you know, again, hopefully AMD is able to replicate that and have an equally good developer experience. But, you know, that experience is what I think you're referring to, Mike, is it's not even necessarily about like, I want a little bit more performance, but if my job is 20% easier, let's say, by using NVIDIA versus using AMD, I'm probably going to use NVIDIA, right? Like, you know, like that's I think what drives a lot of those decisions, because they are fundamental decisions made by the implementers. It's not like there's a corporate strategy in most places where you're going to have, you know, senior management choosing what is the chipset manufacturer that they use. It's going to be done by the people that are building the software. And if that experience is easier on one platform than another, that platform's probably going to win most of the time.
Get your golden handcuffs out, right?
Exactly.
All right. Hey, guys, I think that's going to put a wrap on this episode of Textron Gang. Good conversations today. Important stuff we're talking about. Terri, John, and John and Mike, thanks for joining us on The Gang. Thank you for watching this. We hope you appreciate it, whether you're watching it on our TechStrong TV stream in the morning, on demand on techstrong.tv or any of our sites, or a YouTube, TechStrong TV YouTube channel, or check out our OTT channel on Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Roku, as well as iOS and Android. So lots of places to watch this. Don't miss it. Until tomorrow, though, we've got a full TechStrong TV schedule following The Gang, so stay tuned right here. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel. We're out.